E10 in a classic car. What really happens? In the latter half of 2021 there was a change to British petrol, one that we hadn't seen since leaded fuel was banned, and that was the introduction of E10 fuel. So what is E10? E10 is basically petrol, but it has up to 10% of its makeup being ethanol. Now, to the most modern drivers, this is no big deal. But the classic car community, they were the ones who felt the biggest threat, and so they tackled the issue head on with great sincerity and calm. The thing is though, is that in mainland Europe, America, Australia and a number of different parts of the world, they've been using ethanol based fuel for years, donkey's years in fact. So I thought, well, if all these countries are able to run their cars on ethanol-based fuels, and a lot of them have big classic car scenes, why can't we? So I decided to find out. In the summer of this year, I ran Annie the Alpine on E5 and E10 to work out once and for all what it actually means. For this experiment, I decided to run the car on both E5 and E10, whilst also recording mileage covered, fuel economy, and of course the cost, because the main consensus is that at the moment E10 is cheaper than E5 because E5 is only being sold as super unleaded. So I thought I'd compare the difference and see whether going for E10 genuinely is cheaper. Something else I aimed to do as well by my little fueling experiment was to work out once and for all what was the truth. Would this car explode as soon as I put E10 in it, as a lot of people seem to think it does? So that's what I did. I recorded my results over a couple of weeks to brimming up the tank all the way up, recording the mileage and calculating fuel consumption, cost per 100 miles, and also cost per month. And I also took note of any performance changes, any reliability changes, any issues that came up during that time. And the results were certainly predictable but interesting. Firstly, we need to explore, why is E10 bad? Well, the one thing that seems to be a recurring theme whenever I'm doing my research is it attacks rubber. So rubber fuel lines, anything like that, apparently is very vulnerable with the increase of ethanol in the fuel. So for people who use that classic car like once in a blue moon and they leave ethanol fuel in there, it seems to be more vulnerable. The main theory for this is that ethanol is hygroscopic. It absorbs water over time and then becomes acidic, and it eats away at the rubber, and apparently also any brass components, which are a fundamental part of various fixings in the carburetor. The carburetor in Annie, for example, uses brass in the jets, in the filter plug at the top, and a few of the other fixings as well. So chances are prolonged use of E10 would mean that those will become weak and they're more likely to corrode. But obviously for my experiment, just using it in one tank, that's not really going to make a big deal of difference. When I was running Annie on E10, there was no performance difference. Genuinely, no performance difference at all. The car was performing absolutely fine. I'd get up for work in the morning, start the car up, drive to work, absolutely no drama. The only drama that would happen was once I'd do my shift and then I'd get back in the car to head home from work, she wouldn't start. And that was because the carburetor was flooding itself. Why? I don't know. I have a theory though. My theory is that E10 has got less lubricity, is that a word? Than E5. So as a result of that, the fuel level valve would just stick and would allow more fuel to go into the fuel bottle than it can burn, and as a result, engine floods. That's a theory. I'm not saying that's fact, it's only a theory, but it's the only one I've got. As I said, my whole test isn't entirely scientific. But after a 325-mile run with full tank of fuel, Annie averaged 29.98 to the gallon, just a shade under 30 miles per gallon, which isn't bad for an old car like this. The only thing that made me think, ooh, was when I compared the results against my E10 test against my E5. E5 though, the more expensive of the two fuels, delivered a very interesting result. I was seeing an average of 35.8 to the gallon, which is considerably better than that of the E10. Now obviously if it was 1 or 2 mpg difference, then I would go, okay, well, fair enough. But bear in mind, this was under similar conditions. In fact, if anything, I actually went slightly outside the Talbot's comfort zone, taking her on dual carriageways and the like, so 70 mile per hour driving, whereas with the E10 it was purely 60 mile per hour driving, commuting from home to work. That was it. With some basic calculations, I worked out that over an average distance of 1,500 miles a month, you could be looking to saving £54 a month just by using premium unleaded. Now obviously this is all dependent on the prices of the fuel as it was at the time, which is why I've been putting all the prices up on the screen so you can see. But that is not an insignificant amount of money, because ultimately when you really boil down to it, 54 quid, that's very nearly a full tank of fuel. That'll get you somewhere, and you're saving that every month by using the more expensive fuel. As you use up what's in the tank, I see no reason why you'd suffer any long-term damage. But of course, this is just based on my findings. People may have very different results. I've also been using an E10 protector, which I don't know if it works or not. But the thing is, we are so lacking in hard facts about what E10 does to the long-time use of a classic car. Now, as I've said, there are loads of other countries in the world which all have ethanol-based fuel. You go to mainland Europe, you can buy E85 out of the pumps. And apparently, a Weber carburettor, like what's in my car, should be able to handle that without issue. But how do you know? How can you tell? I don't think there is any way of telling in this country, because we haven't had to deal with it. So, in my conclusion, I would say you can use E10 if you need to, if you absolutely need to. But the thing is that with the cost of the fuel, the differential in the miles per gallon, I would say it would definitely only be used in an emergency manner. Always carry a bottle of E10 protector with you. I would definitely say that much. As I said, I don't know if E10 does actually work, because I haven't tested this car long enough on E10 to actually know if it does work. But as I said, there are so few hard facts out there. I think that's the only one we can go on, really. Just the companies say it works, and a couple of experts have even said that it works. So I think that's what we're just going to have to trust our word on, really. But yeah, definitely, if you're driving a classic car in regular use, you'll actually save money driving on premium. At least I found that. If you guys are willing to follow my example, I'd love to know what results you've mustered up. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody goes out and fills their car up with E10 and uses it on the regular. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're able to, work out the differential. Like, work out what your miles per gallon is in E10 and E5. It'd be very interesting to look at. And maybe we can just become a bit more clued up as to what E10 actually does and what it actually means for classic cars. I don't think E10 is as big a threat as the classic car community have made out, because it's easy enough to ignore just by buying E5, and you also save money in the process, And on top of that, we don't know what the long-lasting effects of E10 actually are for a classic car. It could be fine, it could be hideously expensive in the long run. We just don't know. So until we get more findings, because this is the thing, it's been nearly a year since E10 rolled out onto British petrol station forecourts. So it'd be really nice to know what is E10 and what it actually does. Because I think we've been in the dark for far too long. We need to know. If we're going to continue enjoying our cars, we absolutely need to know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little experiment video, and I hope you guys have found my findings as interesting as I have. So, as always guys, thanks for watching, and I shall see you later.